Hey, what's up guys? Gons here with this week's word of encouragement. It comes from Acts 20 verses 28 through 31. Here's what it says. Pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock in which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to care for the church of God, which he obtained with his own blood. I know that after my departure, fierce wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock, and from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things to draw away the disciples after them. Therefore, be alert, remembering that for 3 years I did not cease night or day to admonish everyone with tears. Now it starts off, pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock. Now in this chapter, Paul shows great sadness and great compassion and great courage as he was leaving Ephesus and the Ephesians church there, letting them know that it was going to be the last time they will see Paul. And Paul was really adamant to the leaders of Ephesus to pay attention to yourselves and to all the flock. Why is that? Why that warning? Now, the standard, of course, isn't perfection, but nevertheless, it was a pretty high standard. And unless you're paying attention to yourself and also to the flock, then it's going to be really easy to be led astray. So basically, Paul is saying here, pay attention to yourselves and the people of God. Love them, look over them, care for them. Do it because the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to care for the church, which of course God obtained with his blood. And isn't it interesting here that Paul says in verse 29, I know that after my departure, fierce wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. Paul's warning here was very, very urgent. Paul knew that even with a pastor or a leader of God's people, had more to do than just only feed and lead, but also protect. This is a big, big problem, I think, in the modern church, because I think a lot of wolves have come in and have destroyed what would otherwise be a powerful community of believers. And it says here, and from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things to draw away the disciples after them. So again, Paul warning very, very diligently here that people will be drawn away. People will arise to speak twisted things to draw people away from the truth. And then Paul says, therefore, be alert, remembering that for 3 years I did not cease night or day to admonish everyone with tears. Now that word for admonish is also translated warning in some translations. But here's what Paul did for 3 years. He was watchful. He was warning people. He was all about universal care for everyone. He wasn't there just for, an experience. He was there for 3 years. And he did it with tears. And here's where the encouragement really comes from. I know many of you guys have experienced tears. Of course, there's tears of joy, but for the most part, tears come out of excessive sorrow, psychological pressures, emotional pressures, to the point where we can't handle it and we start to tear up and we cry. Anytime our hearts become overburdened and uncontrollable, tears flow out. But it's interesting because there are several times in the Bible, especially the book of Psalms, where it talks about people having tears for God. Job 16:20 talks about pouring out tears unto God. Psalm 6:6 talks about how the bed is totally wet because of my tears. But we know that Romans tells us that tribulation produces endurance and so on. And I think part of the tears in the context of seeking God is really a life-changing thing because it speaks to our desperation and our lack of ability to solve problems on our own. And we need a transcendent source to comfort us, to give us the truth, to set us free from this bondage of sin and death and evil. And so just as Paul, in ministering to the people of Ephesus, even to the point where he was warning people day and night with tears, I think it speaks to the passion Paul had for the word and also the level of importance his warning was to the church and the church leaders there. And so I encourage you this week, don't be afraid of tears. And if you are in a situation where you are experiencing many sorrowful tears, know that it's only making you stronger, and know that this is actually a physical reaction seeking the Lord, seeking something transcendent, because otherwise we as humans can't handle those emotions. And I think it also speaks to this idea that as the world grows cold, crying and tearing up over certain things becomes more and more unfashionable. As we become, more cold and calculated and efficient as a civilization. But in reality, we all seek those powerful emotions where it draws us to tears, even tears of joy. Think about all the TV shows you watch where you are emotionally drawn in and you start tearing up. It just means there is a natural inclination for the human being to deal with emotions that are overbearing, that are too strong for our hearts and our minds. And so be encouraged. If you're someone who is experiencing lots of tears of sorrow, it's making you stronger. It's drawing you closer to God, believe it or not. Just acknowledge it, recognize it, and ask Him to heal your heart. Ask Him to push you forward in what you need to do to fulfill your mission while you are here, occupying in this most outrageous time in human history. Have an awesome week, guys. God bless.